Welcome to this explainer. You know, sports history is just packed with these incredible records, untouched dynasties, and stats that, well, they just shouldn't make sense. But today, we're looking at a stat that completely breaks all football logic. I mean, it's a literal glitch in the matrix of the beautiful game. We're talking about a record so totally staggering, it kind of sounds like a playground myth, but I promise you, it's 100% real. So, let me throw this ultimate trivia question your way. What is the only national team that five-time World Cup champion Brazil has never, ever managed to beat? You're probably thinking, okay, it's got to be a heavyweight like France, right? Or maybe a bitter rival like Argentina, or a defensive juggernaut like Italy. Well, the answer, amazingly enough, is Norway. Yeah, Norway. Brazil has exactly 0 wins against the small Nordic nation. 0. Across their entire glittering history, the most decorated international football team on the planet has literally never found a way to conquer the Vikings. It's this ultimate David and Goliath story, and we're going to break down exactly how in the world this happened.
Section 1. Brazil's Scandinavian Kryptonite.
The contrast here is just night and day. On one side, we've got Brazil, think sun-drenched beaches, an absolute god-tier football pedigree, and 5 World Cup stars shining on their jersey. They're basically the global ambassadors of the sport. And on the flip side, we have Norway. A much more modest footballing history, a population of just 5.6 million people, and a climate that's, let's be honest, way better suited to dominating the Winter Olympics, which they totally do. I mean, Norway is famous for skiing, for glaciers, for chess grandmasters like Magnus Carlsen. They are definitely not supposed to be the kryptonite to the greatest footballing nation on Earth.
But to really wrap our heads around this hoodoo, we gotta look at the track record. They first clashed back in 1988 in a friendly that ended in a 1-1 draw. You'd think, okay, surely a fluke, right? But then, flash forward to 1997, Norway actually stuns a Brazilian team featuring Ronaldo with a 4-2 victory in Oslo. Then, in 1998, they meet on the grandest stage of all, the World Cup, where Norway pulls off this miraculous 2-1 win. And their final meeting? A 2006 friendly ending in another 1-1 draw. 4 matches, 2 draws, 2 Norwegian victories. Brazil has just never figured them out.
Section 2. The Miracle of Marseille.
All right, 70. This is actually one of my absolute favorite statistical anomalies. If we travel back to June 23, 1998, at the Stade Velodrome in France, Norway's starting lineup that day was an incredible 70 centimeters taller overall than Brazil's. Seriously, it was a physical mismatch of epic proportions. Norway fielded absolute giants like Håvard Flo, Dan Eggen, and Tore Andre Flo, standing 1.93 meters tall. By halftime, the Norwegians had just physically battered the Brazilian attackers, knocking them into the turf over and over.
And actually, speaking of Tore Andre Flo, we absolutely have to talk about Flonaldo. So in the run-up to that '98 World Cup, a Norwegian company launched an ice cream named Flonaldo in tribute to him. Picture this, a pistachio-flavored treat with a dark chocolate topping. Now, Norway is actually one of the top consumers of ice cream per capita in the world, despite the freezing cold, so the nickname really stuck. And on that wild day in Marseille, Flonaldo completely eclipsed the actual Ronaldo.
So picture the game. It's tight, it's tense, completely scoreless until the 78th minute when Bebeto finally breaks the deadlock for Brazil. At this point, it feels like the fairy tale is officially over for Norway. But wait, just 5 minutes later, 83rd minute, Flonaldo himself, Tore Andre Flo, twists inside the box and fires home the equalizer. And he doesn't even celebrate. He just grabs the ball out of the net because Norway has to win to advance. Then, 89th minute, utter madness. Junior Baiano pulls Flo's shirt in the box. Penalty to Norway. Ketil Rekdal steps up against the legendary Brazilian keeper Taffarel and just buries it. 2-1 Norway.
Man, the reaction back home was just legendary. The typically super level-headed Norwegian commentator Arne Skei completely lost his mind, screaming that it was, quote, the most important kick of a ball in the history of the Norwegian Football Federation. He was so overwhelmed he even messed up the goal scorer's name on the live broadcast out of sheer panic and joy. It was this moment of pure, unfiltered magic that went way beyond sport. It permanently etched itself into the cultural memory of the entire country.
But the intense joy of 1998 was followed by a very long, very painful winter. Which brings us to this incredibly powerful present-day quote from Norway's 2026 manager, Ståle Solbakken. He said, "These 28 years of hurt, everything that is felt around the country, it will never come back." Now, to really grasp the weight of that statement, we have to look at what exactly happened after Marseille.
Section 3. 28 years of hurt.
So, the crucial takeaway here is that the unbelievable high of beating Brazil, it didn't last. In the very next round of that 1998 World Cup, Norway put on a pretty tepid performance and lost 1-0 to Italy. And then, they just kind of vanished. For nearly 3 decades, a span of 28 years, the Norwegian men's national team failed to qualify for a single major international tournament. Sure, they always had talented players, but they just consistently wilted under the pressure, totally unable to step out of that massive shadow cast by the heroes of '98.
Section 4. The Viking Renaissance. But things are different now. This is no longer just a plucky team of underdogs hoping for a lucky bounce. We are looking at a formidable squad absolutely loaded with global superstars. I mean, you have the phenomenon Erling Haaland, who already has 5 goals in this tournament alone. You have Martin Odegaard, their brilliant, well-spoken captain orchestrating the play. You've got the fleet-footed Antonio Nusa, who people are literally comparing to prime Neymar. The relentless midfield engine Patrick Berg, and goalkeeper Ørjan Nyland making these massive tournament-saving stops. The golden generation has officially arrived.
And guess what? They've already made history. Just a few days ago, Norway finally locked in their first ever major tournament knockout win by taking down Côte d'Ivoire 2-1 in the round of 32. It was just this massive emotional release. The players joined the fans in the stands to do that thunderous, iconic Viking row celebration. Haaland even said after the game that this victory would change Norway forever. And manager Ståle Solbakken, who, fun fact, actually played in that 1998 loss to Italy, told his players they had just changed Norwegian history.
Section 5. The 2026 Showdown.
So, the stage is set for July 5th in New Jersey. Let's impartially weigh how these two teams have navigated the tournament so far. Brazil, managed by the legendary Carlo Ancelotti, has advanced. Yeah, but it's been a surprisingly labored journey for them. Their midfield has looked a bit unconvincing, and they actually had to rely on a massive 96th-minute stoppage time winner from Gabriel Martinelli just to squeeze past Japan in the round of 32. Meanwhile, Norway is riding this massive, unstoppable wave of momentum. Their attack is explosive, their confidence is sky-high, and they're playing completely without fear now that the 28-year curse has finally been lifted.
If we look at the offshore betting odds for this upcoming clash, Brazil unsurprisingly enters as the favorite at -110. They are a footballing superpower after all, that makes sense. But what analysts are quickly pointing out is the incredible value on Norway at +329. Given the sheer mobility of that Norwegian midfield and their devastating offensive firepower led by Haaland, lots of folks see these highly motivated Vikings as a very strong threat to pull off yet another upset.
So, it literally all comes down to this. We have the unstoppable force of Brazil's legacy colliding head-on with the immovable object of Norway's historical dominance over them. Will the 5-time champions finally break this bizarre curse in New Jersey? Or will Haaland and this brand new generation of Vikings conquer Brazil once again? I guess we'll find out soon enough. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning and definitely enjoy the match.